I got with me today Director and CEO of Guide and Ride Incorporated, Mr. Theodore Noel. Boss man, how are you, sir? Welcome to VRP. How are you?
Hey, I'm happy to be here, brother Avery. Everything is good, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, man. Doing okay. Enjoying my time off. Well, I was. My kids, man. Kids. They like to have a lot of fun 24/7. So,
Absolutely, especially on the weekends.
oh my goodness, yeah. And so you try to find time to chill and relax, but you get it where you can. And so
That's right.
I'm blessed and thankful to have those little rugrats running around and needing me twenty four
Yes,
seven. So
yes.
yeah, Sunday's going pretty good. How about you? You guys pretty busy today?
Not too bad today.
Yeah.
Went to church this morning. Just finished our Sunday dinner with my wife and daughter. So now just kind of laid back, and I'll probably look at a couple of GRI items later on this evening. But
Yeah.
I definitely had to make time to be a part of this. Be a part of this podcast with you, brother. So I
Yeah, man.
appreciate it and thank you for the invite, man.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you because I know you're busy 24/7. I really wanted to have you on because you're an expert in your field. You've been doing this work for quite some time. And by the way, guys, I work for Theo's organization. Been working there for a year now in May. And let me tell you, I had no idea the work that GRI does. I didn't know that this field even existed. A year ago, I worked for county health department as a community health worker. My main focus was being embedded into schools, connecting families with resources and services. I met Miss Lisa Wilson. Shout out to Lisa at
Yes.
OCCHD, and she's like, "Hey, I'm getting ready to make a transition to GRI. You should be involved." And I'm like, "Well, what does it entail?" And she told me, it's providing services to those that face HIV. It was a real brief introduction to GRI, and of course, my stigma response was like, why would I want to work in that field? And so that was something that I had to, break down and let go of
Yes.
to truly get into and get involved with this. And so being involved and seeing what it entails, man, I had no idea. And I'm so thankful that Lisa even mentioned it. And I'm thankful for the work that you laid for this to be a possibility. And so I know
Awesome.
you're busy. Thank you for making your time available, and thank you for creating GRI. I wanted to again have this discussion with you also because I feel like we're in a period, boss man, where we are able to, kind of um, slow things down. And I think COVID did a really good job about slowing things down
You did.
and put a mark in where we're at in history. And with
Right.
technology, we can look back pretty far to how America's evolved. And now, we can pinpoint to where we're at and decide on where we want to go. And to me,
Right.
that's a continuum. It's a clear choice in making decisions and what we have and what we can see. As far as using technology on what kind of future we want. Unfortunately, I feel like politically we have leaders and wealth wise we have billionaires making decisions for us,
Right.
especially in the African American community. I feel like there's and my argument is our future has been hijacked. But that's for a different discussion. So, but again, I appreciate you. I wanted to have a discussion for many reasons. One being the continuum, two being the work that you've already laid down, and three, and bringing attention to the work that's being done. And so, I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise. Likewise.
Before we get into it, though, tell us a little bit about how you got into this line of work. Like, what led you into creating
Good
GRI?
questions. So I'm the youngest of five, and I won't tell you my age, so it lets you know how old I am. And I have four older siblings. So my dad was a minister. My mom was an RN since I was a kid. So I've always looked upon them and saw their servant leadership. Being that humble individual and really providing the whole person services for individuals. And so prior to me starting Guiding Right some 25 years ago, I worked as an outreach, I worked as a community council of Central Oklahoma as a school-based service counselor. And I was assigned to a couple of elementary schools in Oklahoma City Public School District and assigned to students that was having behavioral issues within the classroom. So upon doing some counseling with those students and upon doing home visits, I noticed that they were being reared by grandparents uh, other extended family members, even some neighbors in the community. So did a little further examination and digging into it, and found out that their parents were already had HIV, and some had progressed to AIDS, and literally dying in the house and not knowing where to go. And at that time, the places that they did go, the stigma was associated with it. There wasn't any linguistically culturally appropriate organization that could even talk to persons that looked like you and I. So just the shame of it all, as they felt, and they was meant to feel that way by some of the traditional community-based organizations at that time. So I just thought about, like, look, if I could just start guiding right and just providing education. It's 25 years, so it morphed into what it's morphed into now. But initially, I was working with Black women and providing education, and then within 6 months, started doing HIV testing. And that's kind of the genesis of the organization. I really just answered the call, answered the need that came from the Black community.
Yeah. That's great. Now I did have a video queued up, our GRI 25th anniversary video. I don't mind if you don't mind, I'll play that. It's 7 minutes
Sure.
long, and then we'll get right back to it on the other side.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let me get that up real quick. Almost. All right, let me know if you have any issues hearing it, boss.
Oftentimes people look at someone with HIV
Can you hear that okay?
as a dirty, horrible
Yes.
person. And the sad thing is, you have so many people that don't know they have it because they are afraid of what the results might say when they get tested. If your story is bottled up inside of you, how can you help the next person?
Sometimes people that are HIV positive may have that stigma, and so it's like they don't want anyone to know about it, or they don't know where they can go to even receive resources. Guiding Right can help those people and let them know, you know what, I'm not gonna judge you.
The vision of Guiding Right, we're a social justice, Black-focused, public health community-based service organization that provides services to the African American community in the state of Oklahoma.
Amongst the Black community in Oklahoma City, there are disproportionate rates of heart disease, diabetes, HIV, and other issues as well.
In our state, African Americans are more likely to die earlier. There's a life expectancy difference between North Tulsa and South Tulsa of about 12 years. As it relates to the work that Guiding Right is doing, we're really focused on how do we reduce those health disparities by providing services and resources.
Guiding Right has always been about the health and wellness of the African American community. When Theo started in 1999, he went that route through HIV, AIDS prevention.
25 years ago, there really wasn't a culturally appropriate program or services for Black and brown folks living with HIV. There was a call from the community, and I just answered that call by starting Guiding Right.
I remember back in the 90s, right? Guiding Right passing out information about HIV prevention. They used to have a van, and they would go to the clubs, and the van would be outside the clubs, and they would do free testing for people.
As the years went by, he started to expand those efforts, addressing disparities within the African American community.
Tobacco prevention, from WIC to mental health and substance abuse. We've opened up our New Hope Wellness Clinic 3 years ago.
And over time, that work has continued and grown to make sure that people across the board have access to resources.
You have to have a trusted source to look for information. Guiding Right has been here for 25 years, and so what better source to help yourself, to help your friends, your family, your community?
Whether it's sexual health or tobacco or nutrition, whether it's providing treatment and access to care or education in the community, we're working to make sure that everyone has an improved quality of life in our communities.
Anytime I'm explaining Guiding Right, I like to break it down into accessing care, holistic approach, and prevention services. So as an organization, prevention is very important to us. It's really educating the community.
We know that prevention is cost effective, right? So if you can stop something from happening, you can save dollars that way. And for community members, that's saving lives, that's saving time away from work or family. So the work that we're doing in that prevention realm is largely around education, providing services like screening services.
Certain populations are less likely to access services if they don't feel like they trust the systems of care, or even money may be a factor as to why they're not accessing these services. So we've made the price point zero. We've also made it as accessible as we can by getting out in the field and meeting with partners in the community and leaders out in the community who can also put us in these areas and to meet the people that we really want to serve.
Guiding Right, they come help us with HIV testing, help the campus be more educated, more knowledgeable about HIV in general, STIs, and ways to ensure that they maintain healthy lifestyles.
Empowers our tobacco prevention.
We partner with businesses to provide them with tobacco use prevention material, radio ads, social media.
It's focused largely on education on cessation, as well as policy change related to tobacco use to ensure that they have safe tobacco-free places that people can go.
Access to care has been difficult historically. There's always individuals being left behind.
Guiding Right is looking at our most marginalized communities within our state that are often overlooked by other organizations to make sure that they're supported, respected, and getting what they need.
We are working really hard to eliminate all of those barriers to care, so providing free and low-cost services and in community locations.
Here at New Hope Wellness Center, we provide STD treatment, PrEP services, PEP services.
Individual can be seen by a provider and have their medication all in one day.
They make me feel very comfortable and like, I'm a normal human being. Living with HIV doesn't have to stop your life.
The fact that Guiding Right is providing services means that people can have access to life-saving, life-enhancing services that allows them to use their resources in other ways.
With WIC, we provide formula, we provide the nutritious foods, fruits and vegetables and milk and things like that that people need that sometimes we skip out on.
That's what I feel when I think of Guiding Right. It makes things that needs to be accessible to people to have a better quality of life.
One of the things that Guiding Right focuses on is a holistic community approach. If a community member is living with HIV, it's a possibility that HIV is not on their priority list. It could be employment, it could be housing, mental health and substance abuse, transportation, food. Thrive incorporates mental health and substance abuse, essential support services into HIV.
Thrive is treatment, resources, intervention, and education. We see someone that has a need, and we're there to help them with that need.
All I had was $50 in my pocket, and I was living out of my SUV. It led to serious depression and me wanting to just give up, period. I'm thankful for Guiding Right. They took a chance on me. I had a job offer in Oklahoma City, and they helped me with gas money and food to get here. Assistance with home rentals and connected with New Hope as well.
Guiding Right is providing critical work in our community that no one else is doing.
Guiding Right has been here for 25 years doing amazing work in the community.
The people that are downtrodden, who don't believe, are almost giving up on hope, they're the ones that Guiding Right helps to make sure they can see a future.
If it was not for them, nothing would have happened.
We couldn't have done this alone. Definitely a huge thank you for all of our supporters. None of this could have happened without their support.
Being able to have people who don't judge you, it's really just heartwarming, and there's hope for this world, so thank you.
Wow, man.
Wow.
Yes. Every time I watch that, I get heartfelt and motivated again, and it's just
you and I both.
It's a reminder. We're doing the work that is necessary, especially for our community and overall for our state.
That's right.
It mentioned that you started in the 90s to focus on HIV. That was the main thing, and you noticed all these other disparities that happen in the community, and you branched off and you're finding ways to meet those needs. And I think it's amazing. And I appreciate you again for allowing God to use you and your vision to not only help people in the community, but you're providing jobs too, and producing
Yeah.
taxpayers, and and so it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So tell us, let's go back a little bit. I want to go back just a little bit before we go further. What was your
Sure.
upbringing like? So did you grow up in the 70s? And I know in the African American community, we were facing so many different influences, from the drugs to incarceration.
Right.
How did you avoid
Right.
all that?
So, like I said, I'm the youngest of five,
Yeah.
and dad was a pastor, mom was a nurse. So I had two parents in the household. So I didn't have to look outside of my household to find my role model because my dad was my role model. In those days, so I'll go ahead and give you. I'm 60. God willing, I turn 61
Wow.
in the 20th of May.
Dang.
So
Black
I
don't crack.
remember as yeah, man, that's right. I remember as a third grader, kindergarten, first, second grade, I went to a school that's literally down the street from my house. And all the students and all the teachers looked like me. And then the third graders went Oklahoma City integrated busing. So they bused me
Wow.
off to it was almost like a foreign land, where, we integrated with white students, all white teachers. So that was a culture shock for me. And I remember parents throwing eggs at our buses.
Wow.
So that left an imprint in my mind, like, wow, are we just here to just get an education?
Yeah.
But there's segments of the population that have a different thought process, and just downright prejudice.
Yeah.
So they didn't want black and brown kids in their schools. That's where they were reared. So to answer your question directly, how come I didn't get into gangs again? I didn't have to look far outside of my house for a role model. And I played
Yeah.
sports. I was a pretty decent basketball player. And that's pretty much what I did during the summers. After school, after I finished my homework, I was at the gym or at the rec center, hooping it up.
Yeah.
So, and actually, the gang members actually respected you. Like, hey, I remember several times, like, hey, Teddy, it's time for you to go home. That meant someone was getting ready to
Wow.
jump
Yeah.
off, and they didn't want me around.
Yeah.
So I appreciate I appreciate those guys.
Yeah.
But it wasn't hard for me to stay out of games and have that type of influence because I saw what I wanted to be. I saw the man that I wanted to be in my dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw the husband how I wanted to be in my dad and how he treated my mother. So that's the
Beautiful.
long and short answer of that.
Yeah. So did you lose friends to that influence, to those type of
Oh yeah,
influences? Yeah.
yeah. I had several friends, brother, that classmates of mine are no longer here,
Yeah. Yeah.
are incarcerated as
Yeah.
a result of just decisions that they made in joining gangs. So the gangs were as I was coming up, particularly more in high school, it became a little bit more prevalent.
Mhm.
But just I had friends just make poor decisions, man,
Yeah. Yeah.
and who are no longer with us today as a result.
Yeah. I think that's common throughout the generations. We'll see
It
some
is.
friends that we lose. But I want to talk a little bit too about the community. What was the community like as you were growing up? I know you said that the desegregation happened, and kids were going to school with each other.
Yeah,
Black and brown were going with white kids, students, and
yeah.
but for the community's perspective, did you see? Have you seen the community grow any stronger, or has the community kind of been affected due to the lack of wealth and some of the policies that haven't kind of gone to sustain our community,
Right,
the community that you
right.
grew up in?
I've definitely seen a change in community, particularly the
Yeah.
community where I grew up with was Crescent Hills. And when I grew up, there was a time when you were disciplined by your neighbors, and there wasn't any issues. Your parents didn't get mad and go to your neighbor's house and have it out with them. That's
Right.
just a fundamental respect that we all had as a community, that you could be disciplined by your neighbor. Like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. Go home or whatnot. Um, Always there's systemic issues that can cause a problem. I have my theory on gang influence and particularly
Hmm.
drugs. How all of a sudden
Yeah.
drugs just start flooding our
Going
community,
in. Hmm.
um, where black folks don't own ships, planes,
Yeah.
poppy fields to bring drugs here, but all of a sudden
Right.
it's infused in our community. And
Yeah.
as a result of that, it's done some damaging effects on our communities.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to the HIV issue, and you kind of grew up in the period to where it was all new, right? And everyone, there was
Yeah.
this immediate stigma behind it. What kind of led you to being able to kind of oversee that stigma? Because I had to work at it. I'm gonna be honest. I had to develop some courage and look at myself in the mirror and say, why am I judging people that have this illness that I have no idea about? And so, how did you deal with that into creating this organization?
It wasn't easy, brother Avery. I tell you, like I said, when I first started, I was just working with African American women about education. And 6 months later, started doing testing. I didn't work with any other population, just only sisters. And then I started looking at some of the epidemiological data, started seeing some of the trends that was going on, and understood that men were being infected at a higher rate than women in HIV. And being a heterosexual male, I had to step out of my comfort zone to work with and for individuals that had a different sexual preference as I. So that took that took a while for me to really, just to be honest, to really be comfortable working with that particular population.
Yeah.
And then there's always going to be outside noise, and I think a lot. My sports has a lot to do with I can just tune people out. So early on, hey, Theo must be, he must be gay. He's working
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
with gay black guys.
Right.
No, that's further from the truth. But say what you want to. It's all
Right.
good. This community needs service.
Yeah.
So it took a while for me to step out my comfort zone. But now years later, of course, it's about our family members. It's about our community providing and take that stigma and judgment and however you were reared. We like to say, hey, leave your attitudes at home. Post them up at the door before you come in. Whatever beliefs that you have, don't bring that into the company of Guiding Right. And just be open-minded and be available to help members of our community. And that means all members of our community.
That's right. And that's beautiful because we live by that. Every time we show up, there's no judgments. It's a no judgment zone. And we talk about that a lot in the Thrive Grant on 39th Street. It's echoed at headquarters, and when we go out into the field. And that's a beautiful thing too, boss, like being able to be out in the field with the no judgment zone. And we're there to kind of address the disparities in the African American community, but we're not closing off other people. We test Hispanic, we test white, we test the natives, and so, it's a beautiful thing. And like I said earlier, like I had to work on the stigma and the judgment that I didn't know was there until Miss Lisa shared the opportunity with me. And I'm glad that, I was able to kind of work on myself through that. And I think that has a lot to do, with Miss Lisa and the people that have already been doing the work, and so shout out to people that have been doing the work, kind of creating this atmosphere of a no judgment zone and acceptance. Yeah,
that's right.
So last season, I tried my best to stick with a theme, and the theme was transformation. When you hear the word transformation, what comes to mind?
That's a very powerful word, Brother Avery. Transformational for me means radical change. We can't continue to do the same things that we've done and not see any change. So transformation for me is radical change. And as an organization, we have to be transformational in providing services in our approaches to folks that need our help. So if one door, one theory, or one method that you may have is not working, we have to be willing to change. And that means a radical change. That's a 180, doing something diabolically, different than what you've been doing, because what you've been doing is not working. So transformation means radical change.
Yeah, that's beautiful and that's deep. It's all encompassing. It's really kind of a jolt that some of us sometimes need. Is like, hey, we got to be radical in our actions if we want to see some type of better results, you know. And for me, boss man, I don't think I've had a chance to share this story with you, but I was dealing with a drug addiction, a long-term drug addiction for a good part of my young adulthood, and came from marijuana to methamphetamine. And through that, you know, that time period, you know, I was wanting these great things to happen. I wanted to provide these great things to my family.
Sure.
But I wasn't being real with myself. You know, I needed to go inside and do some work and look at what I was doing to yield these negative results, look at what I needed to do to yield positive results. And it required me to do, you know, to transform my perspective and my actions, my habits, and my whole life. It was radical, you know, and it works when you do it for yourself, and it starts with yourself, I feel like. And then once you kind of get the grasp of understanding who you are, I guess, and you know, working on a better self and a better, you know, you can kind of look around in the community and see where you might be helpful too. And so I kind of look at that, the opportunity to that radical change and transforming myself to how can I help others with the radical change in themselves as well. So that's well said. It's definitely a radical, sometimes that we radical change is what we definitely need sometimes to see better results. So to this term collective uplift, I'm curious, but before I ask you the question, I wanted to, you know, make a point. I never heard of the word collective uplift until I stumbled across a lady named Yvette Carnell. And she speaks a lot about collective uplift politically. And what she speaks politically is that, hey, you know, the African American community hasn't been as involved politically as we should. And, you know, we should be more involved with politics because politics will collectively uplift the community into a better space. And with that being said, when you hear the word and the term collective uplift, what comes to mind?
A couple of phrases. I am my brother's keeper. One of the African saying is, it takes a village to raise a child. So it means that the prime example, me being at the helm of Guiding Right, I didn't do any of this stuff by myself. It wasn't me alone working in silo on my own island. I needed like-minded employees to come along and assist in all of our efforts to uplift our community. So it really takes a village, man. So it can't be done singular. There's not one thing that you can accomplish solely on your own. You're gonna have to have help from someone, and so that is the collective. I see Guiding Right staff being that collective and providing the services that we provide, the vast array of public health services that the organization provide. It is a collective uplift. And the collective is the employees, individuals. It's employees like you, brother, and what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's well said. And I wanted to touch on that too, because that is it. And you've been doing collective uplift since 1999. And even before then, you were working in the school district, and I believe that's a form of collective uplift. And, you know, shout out to Yvette Carnell. You know, I appreciate all the work that she's doing politically, but, you know, also to kind of expand on collective uplift, beside it being, you know, a word that we use in African American for African Americans to be more involved politically. I think it could go to our state. You know, how do we be involved collectively, uplifting our state? Because we are last in so many different categories, economically and socially. And so I think that a collective uplift, figuring out ways to, you know, get into the community, provide services and resources, is truly helping our state, let alone the individual community. And so that was good. That was real good. So GRI has been doing, its main thing's been HIV, and we do a damn good job at it, getting out into the community, providing services. How have we tailored our approach when we face challenges within the African American community? So when we look at HIV as one component, but we might see that family. You mentioned holistic approach in the video. We might see a family that might need additional resources. How we kind of tailored our approach and testing to address the specific needs and challenges within the African American community.
Sure. So, as an organization, we are nimble, right? And what I mean by nimble, we don't have our feet stuck in the sand that we're only going to do it one way. So I think for that, we really have to be responsive to our community and really have community input, because the community will let you know what services that is needed. So that we have to be nimble, we have to be cross-sectional, so to speak, and really um, knock down those barriers of individuals from community accessing. And we have to be culturally and linguistically appropriate. And what I mean, you have to talk the lingo. I mean, you can't just use the standard King's English when you're talking to some of the brothers from the hood, because nah, brother, gone, you fake. So, and that's what I mean by linguistically appropriate. So, with that being said, we just really have to knock down those doors for barriers, and really be in tune to the community. Let the community feel comfortable enough with you, that knowing that we will listen. I think the work of the case managers, the community health workers, is a prime example of really being in tune, because that's what you guys do. You listen to the community and you provide those services. You fill that gap. You're that bridge to what that is needed from the community. So applaud to you, Avery, and the Thrive team, and the case managers and the community health workers, brother. It's been a lifesaver. It really has, and I've heard that from my clients. So I ain't lying.
Yeah, that's what's up. Shout out to the Thrive team. Shout out to the
Yes,
CHWs and case managers. We really love what we do, man. It's a good time, and it's rewarding. I don't want to take too much of the ego approaching all the glory, because it's not about me. It's about the community. But there is that self-satisfaction that comes with this, and I'm gonna be straight up about it.
It is.
It feels good. But so throughout your time doing this and creating these services, or excuse me, creating these opportunities to meet the need of the community, was there ever a time to where you felt like you wanted to get out of this, or because you take on a lot, I'm sure this has evolved right into what it is. CHW is a fairly new position. Have you always had case managers? And then to the first part of that question, like, did you always want to do this? And when did you realize that you needed more support within case managers and adding the CHWs?
As we've grown as an organization, and as we've identified the needs of the community, we had to bring on community health workers, and obviously that it costs, right? So I'm very aggressive with grants that we see, and I bounce it off existing staff. Hey, do you think this? There's a thing called mission creep. I really don't wholeheartedly accept that. That's why our mission is so broad that we can provide, long as it's in the sphere of public health. That's within our mission. And so, community health workers, you're right, is a fairly new phenomenon. We have a very powerful board member, Dr. Marshawn Merrick, who's vastly engaged in community health workers in the state of Oklahoma, and is a power player around community health workers. So she and I put our heads together. There was a funding opportunity, a federal funding opportunity through SAMHSA, that would allow us to hire community health workers to do our job and to provide those services. And particularly with Thrive, it's that intersection between HIV, substance abuse, and mental health. So data will suggest if you're inebriated, if you're high, your decision-making process is going to decrease. That could possibly put you at high risk for HIV acquisition. So community health work is vital to the work that we do at Guiding Right, for sure.
Yeah. So as you started off in this field, though, it's obviously grown. And as it was growing, was there ever a period where you're like, oh shit, this is getting too damn big for me? Like,
So I can really, yes, quick answer, yes. Uh, there are times when it just seems overwhelming.
Yeah.
But there never was a time when I just said, "To hell with it, I'm ready to quit." As a result of it being overwhelming. Now I'm seriously thinking my exit plan, Avery, is the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so I'm that's my exit plan.
Yeah.
The one thing that really keeps me fired up and enthusiastic about what we do, prior to us starting New Hope Wellness Center, when we identified a newly identified HIV positive, and when we were refer them to, I'm just going straight to OUIDI clinic, it was 3 or 4 months before the individual can be seen by an infectious disease
Wow.
doc, which is asinine.
Yeah.
I talked to colleagues across the country, like, hey, what's the wait period after you identify a positive that they can be seen by a provider? They're like a week or two. I'm like, huh? Yeah, like a week or two, Theo. If it goes a month, man, that's crazy. So we were like 3 months. I'm like, the hell with that.
Yeah.
So start doing research and just birth New Health Wellness Center, brother.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
where we have
Yeah.
our provider right there on site.
Yeah.
So that there's rapid start. If we identify a positive, listen, we refer you to New Hope
New Hope.
Wellness Center.
Yeah.
You've been seen by a provider. All your labs are being run. Everything's been done. And guess what? You can walk away with your medication the same day because we have a pharmacy on site.
Yeah.
So that has really put us in a new area, so to speak, because there's not. Well, I think we're the only organization in the state of Oklahoma that's a community base that has a clinic and a pharmacy. So
Wow. So that's alleviated
now
some of the stress that you did take on.
it did
Yeah.
because it really put a high premium on, at that time, our case managers and even our HIV testers to keep an individual engaged for like 90 days.
Exactly.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
do you guys really care about me? You say
Right.
you're there every step of the way, but I have to wait 3 or 4 months before my HIV can be addressed.
Right.
So it really put a high premium, and kudos to staff because they we did lose a few through attrition and through relocation. Like, no, man, I can't wait 3 months to be seen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to New Hope, man.
New Hope
We
Wellness
have,
Center, yes, sir.
yeah, man. New Hope Wellness Center. Now we have our own little individual personalities, obviously, but we all gel so well, man. And so,
We do.
shout out to New Hope, Ray, and y'all over there. So,
Yes.
like I said, Miss Lisa told me about the opportunity. My stigma signals went up. My
Yeah.
judgment signals went up. In what ways have you and does GRI work to combat the stigma around HIV and STI testing?
It is. When HIV first came on the scene, it was widely thought of as a white gay male's disease, right?
Mhm.
And which was further from the truth because Black folks infected since day one as well.
Right.
And then America being a so-called Judeo-Christian country, we look at individuals, we look at what they do instead of who they are. And if someone doesn't, look like me or have a preference of something that I might not believe in, then those are bad people. And within that stigma becomes prevalent instead of, again, looking at the whole person, looking at who they are and not what they do. I think that's a way of decreasing stigma, at least from our
Mm.
organization standpoint.
Yeah.
And then really having feedback from the community. We have community advisory boards of people from the community, people that are HIV positive, people that are individuals that are same gender loving males, same gender loving females,
Mhm.
and they have a voice at the table, and they view Guiding Right as a, what you call it, a no stigma zone,
That's right.
a no
Yeah. No
judgment
judgment
zone,
zone. Yes,
as
sir.
a no
Yeah.
stigma zone as well. And
Yeah.
so receiving input from those individuals, it really arm us up in how we can continue to reduce stigma along with that, and just being open to dialogue and communication, and talking to those from a political aspect of like, hey, here's what's going on. You might not be aware of it, so that's what we're here to keep you educated about what's really going on in the community around HIV and AIDS. Again, so that's some of the things that we try to do to decrease the stigma associated with HIV.
Yeah, that's good. I think too, like, being out in the field, what I've noticed. I mean, even in the office, we're just huggers. We love on people, and we smile, we laugh, we joke, and we work. Our office is in the diversity center, and we sit down and have dinners and lunches with our our cohort. The people that are next door to us, and they advocate for the LGBTQ plus I community. And we congregate together, and and so we have these discussions about without using names, positive cases and how certain people that may get positive tests, how they might respond, and we love on them, we hug on them, and we spend time to talk to them about it not being a death sentence, and we help them with the next steps, and how to get the treatment that they need. And so I think our actions really do show that we're aware of the stigma that might come up, and we've combated with that judgmental and stigma that we personally face.
I love that, Avery. I love that. Yeah.
And I've noticed it from every one of the our testers, our CTRs, and myself. It's contagious. The love that we have for people and the work that we do. And so it's definitely a very valid thing that point that we go out of our way to make to anybody that comes into our office. Is like, hey, this is a no judgment zone. How can we help? And so it's evident by our actions, and I love to see it. It's definitely contagious, and it's hopeful. It does nothing but bring about more hope. And so you mentioned politically, and I'm gonna be honest with you, boss.
Yes.
When I'm not working at the office, I got a second job, and my second job is a stripper. I'm a stripper. No, I'm just joking. No, my second job is, I'm an activist for reparations and transforming the Black agenda. And politically, we look at, the disparities and the wealthlessness in the communities. So we believe that a lot of the disparities that we see in the African American community contribute to the wealthlessness in our community. And the argument is that we trace that wealthlessness into the African American community as stolen wealth from slavery, from being in America, generating one of the wealthiest countries the world's ever known, and African Americans not being able to access that wealth, whether it be because of convict leasing, black codes, free labor within slavery, just different mechanisms and ways to steal wealth, the great land theft and so forth. But now we're trying to try to pick up the pieces to what we believe is a systematically broken community by forces outside of the community. We look at the health disparities as kind of being fundamental and foundational to uplifting our community.
Right.
A healthy community is a thriving community, and you're doing a great job at providing those resources and services. But as an activist in reparations, I can't help but to sometimes look at how much more we can do if we were to see some type of reparations program.
Sure. Sure.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, I know you try to remain neutral within this, and that's why I kind of try to avoid having discussions of politics with you, because I know that you're here for the state of Oklahoma. But just to kind of be direct in this in our conversation, I'm curious, and I have enough guts now that I'm not in your office and I'm on the computer to ask you. But what are your thoughts on reparations, and do you think that a little more can go a little bit further with GRI in terms of the economic impact if it was available?
I am a believer in reparations, brother.
Yeah.
I really am. And I can't think of a brother that said it. I heard it not only from slavery, well, since our sojourn in America and doing slavery, but up to the present time, because
Yeah.
after slavery, you had, the we couldn't vote, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
once even legislation was passed that we could vote, we had Jim Crow. We had hundreds
Mhm.
of years of that, and even
That's
up
right.
to now, I think, and I don't know what that's going to look like as far as reparations, but I certainly think that we should be compensated, and whatever that compensation is, from our sojourn in America. You look at it. The Jews has been compensated
That's right.
in Germany
That's right.
as a result. Some of the Asian community has been compensated,
Yeah.
and so why not Black individuals?
That's right.
Brother,
Yeah.
I had my grandfather, my mother's father, was born 2 years um, after slavery ended, and I
Wow.
knew him. I knew him. He
Wow.
passed. He was 103 when he died,
Wow.
and when he died, I think I was 7. So I remember my grandfather, and just think that's literally 2 generations
Generations.
away
Yeah.
from slavery, man. That tie exists with me, right?
Yeah.
So his parents were slaves. So
Wow.
my mother's grandparents were slaves.
That is
So
incredible.
that when we talk about 6 degrees of separation, literally that's what it is.
Yeah.
3 generations ago, my ancestors were slaves.
That's
So,
crazy.
and to say that that doesn't have a profound effect on us today is you
That's
hear the
absurd.
establishment say, well, that happened years ago. Yeah, it did, but it still affects. I can't speak for everybody. It affects me today, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So I so again, reparations is something that's needed. I think that needs to be a systematic groundswell
Yeah.
in think tanks and things that you are doing, brother, and I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
And so, how can we get that to our local politicians?
Right.
How can we get that to our, national politicians to really look at this thing seriously? I think there's too many folks, like you said earlier, there's 1% of the population making decisions for the 99% of the population.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and those are the
The
ultra
elite.
rich,
Yeah.
traditionally conservative, white men,
Mhm.
who don't give a damn about reparations, but
Right.
it's something that needs to be brought to their radar because I'm a firm believer in it. Um, and things are done intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like I said, brother, the crack epidemic,
Right.
that's intentional.
Yeah.
That's intentional. It just didn't happen by happenstance.
Right. And it's proven in
Jim Crow,
documentaries. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, sure it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah, I don't want to put anybody on blast or say any names, but I had an opportunity to speak to a congressman, a person who worked in the House. One of his districts was my hometown, or where I was born at, my birth town in
okay,
Anadarko, Oklahoma.
okay,
And so you read between the lines on who this person was, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
addressed him. He came to my son speak for Iron Sharpens Iron breakfast. It was the dads of the football players at Edmond Santa Fe.
okay,
And after he spoke and it was over, I talked to him about, what is the chances of Oklahoma doing a case study on reparations to see how
hmm
slavery affected us then and now. And he laughed and heckled and said, well, with all the white people in the House, I don't think that's something that will ever happen. And I'm thinking to myself, like, is there a moral fiber left in this country? Is there a moral fiber in any of those people that work in the House, and
right,
I understand, there's this traditionalists and this nationalist people, but how much of yourself are you willing to let go, and give
hmm
away to maintain the status quo,
right,
and I would argue that Oklahoma is obviously in the position that it's in. It's a great state to live in. It's a great statehood, and I want to say that its statehood wouldn't be possible without the contributions of African Americans,
no way,
and
absolutely,
and
yeah,
um, you know, it's sad to hear
America wouldn't be,
someone.
brother. I mean, we literally built this country.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Literally.
Off of free labor.
Right.
Look at all the tobacco growth in North Carolina. You know, you heard of Tobacco Row.
Yeah.
Who you think was out there picking the tobacco, brother?
Right. Right.
Those black folks.
Exactly.
Go down
Yeah.
south, cotton.
Right.
The very t-shirts and underwear that people wear today. Who picked cotton?
Right.
Black people.
Right.
So
And didn't
we
get
built this country,
compensated.
man.
Right. And it's
hadn't been
unfortunate.
compensated.
Yeah. We're in the middle of one of the greatest wealth transfers this world's ever known, like the boomers to the millennials. And you know, it's like I had a conversation with a friend, and he was upset about his dad remarrying and she getting $5 million of his inheritance. And I'm thinking to myself, well, man, isn't that ironic? Like, you're fighting for your wealth, and I'm fighting for wealth that was stolen, you know. And so, and this gentleman, he was white, you know, and so I've got a couple of friends that are seeing, you know, quite a bit being passed down, and it's crazy how they get to have wealth transferred and we get debt transferred, you know. And so, I think of it in terms of that, and I also think of it reparations in terms of getting it in the hands of organizations like GRI. Like, can you imagine the impact that it could actually make? It's making a great impact now, but if it was, received what it was stolen, you know, I think would be a huge impact.
I agree.
So we're at 51 minutes. I know you're busy, man. I've got a couple more questions before I let you go.
Sure.
So just for the people, and I kind of have an idea of the answer to this, but I really wanted to come from your mouth. But how does our organization, GRI, ensure accessibility and inclusivity in delivering health services, especially considering the potential disparity in healthcare access? Like, we see a lot of disparities in healthcare access in the African American community and marginalized communities. So how does GRI ensure accessibility and inclusivity in delivering health services?
Accessibility is very important. So the state of Oklahoma is one of 7 rural states that were identified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services of being one of the 7 rural states that could potentially have a serious explosion with new HIV infections in ending the HIV epidemic. And a lot of that was due because some of the rural pockets in the state of Oklahoma and those individuals lacking access to transportation where they could get care, or some of those rural towns that are so small where individuals just don't feel comfortable going in because they're thinking, hey, you're going to know my business, you're going to spread it about. So one thing that we provide, and you know this, Avery, we provide transportation services.
That's right.
So we don't have a problem in send a ride or a ride share or physically getting in our van and going picking up individuals to bring them to our services for care. So accessibility is huge. We also provide bus tokens for those that ride the bus. We provide you with bus tokens, so it's money that you can save, don't have to worry about it, and also just providing those transportation services, and also going in the community and providing
That's right.
services. Right. So
Yeah.
this coming week, on the 24th, we have a large testing opportunity at Ralph Ellison Library.
Yeah.
So going in the community where, hey, we bring the services to you, or we can bring you physically to the services. So accessibility is huge, man. That's what it's all about.
Right.
And as a community-based organization, we understand that folks work. So the traditional 8 to 5 might not work. More than likely, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you have to have. That's where that nimbleness come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if event is going to start at 7:00, then we'll be there at 7:00 to provide that service. So it's really, again, meeting the community where they are and just answering that call, brother.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. And everything you're saying is facts. I'm one of the arms to his operation, and we're out there in the field providing services. I think we've got a couple of events coming up, but which I'll share on the other side of this conversation with my boss, Theo. It's the last question, because again, I know you're busy and I want you to enjoy your Sunday. But we just watched the 25th anniversary video, and It talked about how you started, where we're at now. My question is given the evolving landscape of public health, knowing our 25 years of GRI, where it was at, where it started, where it's at now, what can we expect from the next 25 years of GRI? What's next, boss man?
Good question, Brother Avery. The word more comes to mind.
Come on now.
Expect more from GRI in the next 25 years. Expect more excellence from us. Expect more precise services from us. Expect more from Guiding Right for another 25 years.
Yes, sir.
So really just the word, and if I could sum it up in a single word, the word is more. Expect more from Guiding Right, because we coming, brother.
Yeah, we
We're
are.
coming.
Beautiful, man. Boss man, I appreciate you again for sharing
Thank you,
your time
Brother
with
Avery.
me today. Yes, sir. And one more last question. You
Yes,
don't have
sir.
to answer this, but can a brother get a raise? No, I'm just joking. I was just joking. I know we just got one, so I celebrate that, and I appreciate y'all.
No, listen, we're constantly working on that, brother. You know I'm a
I
grant
know it.
writing, so
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you again, boss man. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Brother Avery. Keep up the
Yes, sir.
great
We'll see you
work,
next
brother.
week. Appreciate it.
All
See you
right.
next week. All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, man, there y'all have it. The OG himself. That was Theodore Noel. He is the founder, president, and CEO of Guiding Right. I work with Guiding Right on the Thrive Grant, and we provide treatment, education, referrals, intervention services. And man, we do a lot, not solely in the African American community, but throughout the state of Oklahoma. It's an honor, a blessing to work with the organization. If you're just coming into this live or this episode, I mentioned to Theo earlier, I had a stigma. Shout out to Lisa. Lisa, she, introduced me to Guiding Right and was like, hey, you should apply. Her and Lisa and I, we worked at OCCHD together. And she told me, the organization, caters and supports people that have HIV, and they provide HIV education and testing. That was just a brief introduction of GRI. But once I did my research, I realized that GRI did so much more. But I did have a stigma, and I was judgmental. I was like, man, would I be, opening myself up to risk working in the HIV community? Like, could I catch it? Just some of the basic, dumb, foolish statements that sometimes we have whenever it comes to our judgments and having a stigma towards a specific something. And I had those dumb statements in my head, like, I don't know about this, man. I might catch HIV from working in the community, providing HIV services and education. And it took a while for me to, allow that judgment in and looking at it and assessing it and praying on it. And, at the end of the day, it was a foolish thought. But we have those things. We feel like we have those thoughts to protect us. But I'm glad that, I had enough information to, withdo that stigma and that judgment, to undo that and to be open to not only providing for my family, but also to make an impact in our community, because people need these services. We're human beings, and I think one of our number one things is to mate. And, I'm be transparent, man. So if your kids are in the room, kick them out. But I mean, people get horny, man. I mean, people want to experience touch and, have these different, experiences, touch, sex. And, a lot of the times, people come out of the gate, so strong and ready to go. Like, if they don't have protection, they're like, screw it. I'm strong and ready to go. And sometimes that's how things are spread, and then when people are intoxicated or using drugs, it's more likely that I've got the word that I want to use here, but it's more likely that they're going to be like, screw it. I'm about to get in this. I'm about to get into this. You know what I mean? And so we want to make sure people are educated and knowing the risk to getting into this when you're intoxicated or high or, maybe facing some depression and, people that just I'm gonna be transparent now, because it's I think it's part of human nature to just be horny sometimes, and we sometimes don't have that self-control. If you don't have that self-control and you have a partner or someone in mind, and you want to go do this because you're horny, like, it's good to be educated on the risk. It's good to know where you can get free condoms. It's good to know that if you did something without protection, or gave in to that urge, and you so happen to catch HIV or be diagnosed with HIV, like, it's good to be able to have services provided so where you can have the treatment that you need. So there are plenty of medications out there. There's tons of education out there. There's tons of protection out there, and our organization provides it. And so I think it's cool to have Theo on. I think that a healthy community is a sustainable community. I really wanted to start this first episode with Theo because, the continuum of healthcare really kind of brings about of a brighter future for America, in my opinion. And so, yeah, that was a good conversation with Theo. He's a very professional man, very intelligent, great leader. Everything that they provide at GRI for the employees and to the consumer or customer or patient is definitely legit. And I love my job. I love the work that we do. I love the people I work with. It's definitely an awesome opportunity. Shout out to you again, Theo. I appreciate you. So this is my first episode back. This season is titled The Continuum. Don't want to get too much into like this creative, philosophical, I don't know, just being straightforward. Now, I know in my past seasons, I tried to do different things, like labeling the episodes differently and just trying to do something different. But this season, man, this is The Continuum. I don't think I'm going to title the seasons anymore after that. It's always going to be in a continuum fashion. But I will be releasing a episode introducing what the season means to me, and hopefully it'll make sense. So stay tuned. I will be airing another episode next Wednesday or Friday. I don't know just yet. I took some time away from Facebook. I took some time from recording, man, and I haven't really thought about recording for the time away. I haven't even touched my computer until today, really. I've been doing a lot of thinking and brainstorming in my notes and in my phone. But man, taking time away from Facebook and social media really kind of puts things into perspective to me as to why I'm doing it, why, this is important to me. And it's become more clear, and so definitely want to be recording and putting out content for the right purpose, and just expect better content from me. So was a little shaky in this first episode back. Thank you, boss, for somewhat being a guinea pig for me today. It was a great conversation and you did great. And so hopefully maybe in the next couple months, we'll get Theo back on to do a take 2. But stay tuned. I've got some really good guests lined up. Shout out to my guests that have been patient with me. I set up some interviews, conversations with some folks prior to my hiatus on Facebook. That was about 2 months ago, and I've kind of just disappeared. So to my people that catch this, that are in line to be guests on this season's episode, on this season, please forgive me for the delay, but it's go time. So if you're still interested, I'll be in touch with you pretty soon to schedule a time and date to do our conversation. So stay tuned for that. And don't forget, everyone has vision. The question is, who are you and what are you looking for? Love you guys. I'm out.